2020. The weather today, a mix of clouds and sun during the morning, will give way to cloudy skies this afternoon, high of 52 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun will rise this morning at 6:45 and will set at 7:21. Amazingly enough, at a time when our doctors and nurses and paramedics are being asked to do such heroic work, today, March 30th, is National Doctors Day in the United States. This is a day to recognize the contributions of physicians to individual lives and to entire communities. Traditionally, a card or a red carnation may be sent to physicians and their spouses, along with a flower being placed on the graves of physicians who have passed. So, I want to tell you the story of some heroic doctors and nurses at the time of Hurricane Katrina. Again, that was in 2005. So, Hurricane Katrina was bearing down on the city of New Orleans, and at Charity Hospital, the doctors and the nurses were literally camping out in the hospital hallways. They were in sleeping bags. And a doctor named Ben de Bois Blanc, beautiful Cajun name, who was better known as Dr. Ben, ran the intensive care unit, the ICU, at Charity Hospital. And Charity Hospital had a special mission in the city of New Orleans. Dr. Ben later said that hospital stands for a lot of things, and it mostly stands for taking care of all patients, regardless of their ability to pay. So when the hurricane struck, at first it seemed as though the hospital had fared pretty well. The damage seemed minimal, but the floodwaters kept rising, and the power failed, and then the backup generators started to fail as well. So water flooded the basement and started going up the stairwells and seemed like it was threatening the first floor where the ICU was. So the hospital staff carried, these are their sickest patients, and they carried 50 very sick patients, all their ventilators and their medical equipment up a flight of stairs. And conditions started to get very bad. There was no air conditioning in the hospital, and the temperature inside the hospital got up to 100 degrees. It was very hot and humid. There was no electricity to run the elevators. Doctors and nurses couldn't take a shower. People kind of began to lose it. They were very angry and frustrated. They were crying because they felt that the city had forgotten them. And in time, the monitors and the ventilators failed because there was no power in the ICU. And so doctors and nurses began having to keep their patients alive by hand. Dr. Ben de Bois Blanc said, "We were trusted with the lives of these people." So after a period of some days, the evacuation of the hospital began. And in order to have their patients accessible to be able to evacuate them, they had to move them again to the roof of a nearby parking garage. And that took many hours. And so there they were on the roof of this parking garage, struggling to keep their patients alive. They were hand squeezing the air into their patients' lungs for hours. Dr. Ben later said, "I saw so many individual acts of compassion in a time when it was out of context. It didn't seem to make sense. I would have thought that those expressions of humanism from one person to another, that kind of compassion would have been reserved for a kinder, gentler time. But it was everywhere." Most of the patients were eventually carried away in rescue boats. Dr. Ben and his team did something that today it really seems almost superhuman. They didn't have even the most basic medical equipment, and these doctors and nurses and medical staff at Charity Hospital worked for 5 days and nights in the dark, in the floodwaters, to keep their patients alive. Dr. Ben says that he is never going to be the same. He says, "This has changed my life forever in a wonderful way. It's opened my eyes. It's made me more human." So remember that the best thing you all can do right now to help doctors and nurses and first responders, the best thing that you can do to help them is to stay home. Keep tending to your victory garden. Keep a pleasant schedule and a good routine. Get plenty of fresh air and exercise. Be a helper to your family. Please don't bicker with your siblings. If it is your birthday today, March 30th, 2020, happy birthday. And if you had a birthday over the weekend, March 28th or March 29th, happy birthday to you. I hope you have a day of kindness, friendliness, and peace. My friends, we are all in this together. We'll see you next time.